We're back with Jerry Sims, Mercruiser instructor at Mercury Marine Canada. And we talked earlier a bit about oil change and other maintenance items. We also now want to talk about the drive on a Sterndrive and the maintenance involved there. Now, friends of mine quite often don't bother pulling their drive, and I think they're crazy because it's a simple service thing you can do. We don't really recommend you do it yourself. How often do you recommend having a drive pulled off and inspected?
Yearly.
Annually.
This drive has an input shaft made out of steel, and it goes into a coupler on the engine that's generally made out of aluminum. It's a spline fit. One is an internal spline, one's an external spline, and they need to be lubricated. So we have to take that off in order to lubricate them. That spline goes into what's called a coupler, and that coupler is attached to the engine, and it has to be lined up perfectly.
We're also going to take a look at some seals in there.
What you're going to get is a seal kit between the drive and the bell housing here. So that'll include 3 O-rings that go over the shaft. You'll get those, and you'll get 2 O-rings, one for the shift cavity and one for the water passage.
How often do you do that seal kit?
Every time you take this off, you put those seals on.
Okay.
Before pulling the drive off, it's best to remove both trim cylinders completely. If you only unbolt one end, you risk scratching the drive, setting it up for corrosion down the road.
And I should be able to, if I'm lucky and everything's lined up, this should just pull right off.
Just be careful that you unhook the shifter cable before pulling the drive. Inspecting a drive is as important as servicing or replacing seals. You really want to know if water is getting in, and the best way to check is to look right down the bellows. Water rarely gets past the drive seal, but bellows are a wear item. You can perform a visual check of the bottom side of the bellows with the drive on, but in Jerry's experience, they more often fail along the sides. Don't forget, failed bellows can sink the boat.
It's like an accordion.
Yeah.
So if you open and close it enough times, the creases eventually will crack and they'll get old and they'll fail. Either one of these bellows can sink the boat. It's about every 5 years that you should take that off and put new bellows on it, new hose. It's about a 5-year program.
And looking at the accordion shape, it's one of the reasons you don't store a boat with the drive up. The upper part's compressed and the bottom part's extended. Better to leave the drive down so that bellows in a more neutral position.
Exactly right.
We also check the gimbal bearing and inner shaft splines for excessive wear. Before reinstalling the drive, the coupler holding the gimbal bearing should be checked for proper alignment with an alignment tool. This ensures the drive shaft will properly line up with the bearing and engine once the drive is back on.
You tried. So that's a perfect alignment.
It should go in that easily.
That easily.
If it doesn't, it's not aligned.
It's not aligned.
You might think once aligned, nothing should change. But as a boat ages, many things can happen to cause misalignment.
You know, if you don't have it checked often enough, what'll end up happening is you'll have a coupler failure, and a coupler is about $1,000, and then you have to take the engine out, actually, to put the coupler in. So if you check it every year annually, you can adjust it every year if you need be, and you'll always be in good shape. Now I'm going to, lubricate the shaft here to make sure I have the correct grease on it, and we're going to put the drive back on.
But again, a little bit much for the DIYer, I think. This is definitely something that probably the dealer should do.
We're just trying to show you why it's important.
Just having that dolly is pretty important. I wouldn't want to put my drive, I want some gravel on the driveway there, put a blanket down and lay it.
It's pretty heavy, and it's cumbersome, it's a bigger drive.
Changing the drive lube is also an important annual service, which we've covered before. Just make sure you orient the drive so that the drain plug is at the lowest point. Not all drives have the same location for the drain bolt. Considering the value of a drive and the amount of effort it takes for a proper service, this is something you may want to have your authorized dealer or marina do for you. After all, this is the kind of routine maintenance they perform all the time.
We're just trying to address, why would you take it to a dealer? The dealer's not trying to take your money. He's really trying to do you a favor.